Good evening, friends. Stephen Ben-Nun here with Israeli News Live. And listen, friends, we have just, I have to thank Brother Chavar, who sent me not this particular video, but I'll bring up the video I brought in a second. But this is in Israel.
Can't hear you, Steve.
Hang on one second, brother. That we're in Israel right here, and what's going on is you're looking at scenes of some Jewish people running in Demona. In Demona, the nuclear where the nuclear reactor is for Israel has come under attack, and Robert Inlak Kesh also putting up some video footage there of this happening. There is some early reports that a drone was flew over there by Hezbollah, and you can see in the video footage right here on your screen here, they're showing you from different webcams in Israel the very large explosion. Israel's defense shield also was activated as well. Right now, nothing else has been reported on this, but I do have on the line with us Gary Lowry, Brother Gary Lowry out of California. And I have to tell you, friends, as soon as I saw this report, I have been waiting for this for years because Brother Gary and myself, we've talked about this Demona incident that was going to be coming because God had showed him in a dream. He also spoke to him years ago, told him to tell his wife that this was going to happen. And now we're seeing this happen right now. Brother Gary, thank you for joining me here tonight on Israeli News Live.
I'm glad to be here with you, Steve.
Thank you, Brother Gary. And I'll tell you something, Brother Gary, if you can, I mean, we've been friends for many years. I mean, since, gosh, I guess, Brother Gary, since I started ministry practically, we've been friends and we've stayed in touch. Of course, not on my part. I'm really bad. You know how I am. I'm bad about getting back with people. Just don't tell nobody that, though, Brother Gary. So, but anyway, but, you know, I'll say that I want the people that are listening, one thing I'd like for you guys to know about Brother Gary that I know personally because of all the years we've been friends. And by the way, this is his YouTube channel right here, Bear049. Brother Gary has had some very profound prophetic dreams over the years, in so much that at one point there was an issue going on with Syria, and Brother Gary had a dream about it, and he actually named an individual that he saw in one of the meetings that was going on. I think it was with the Israelis, a secret meeting they were having, and he knew that there was a risk that Israel would be facing from Syria, from rockets that were over in Syria. And he asked me to relay that information over to the Israeli government because of the contacts I had there. And I did. And it actually shocked them because they said he shouldn't have known the name of the individual. And so they wanted to know about his dream specifically because of that. So, you know, I can tell you from experience that a lot of things that the Lord has shown him, he's one of the very few people that I really appreciate. When God gives him a dream or something, I actually take notice of it. And Brother Gary said, this is going to be another one that God has shown you, and we're seeing it come to pass. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can. I had these. Well, first I had a dream. I can't remember the order, whether it was the dream first or the word from the Lord, but I had a word from the Lord, and he told me that the Demona, the nuclear facility, would be attacked by Iran. And then he also said, and the city of Demona itself will be attacked. And he told me to tell my wife so that it would give proof to her that God himself was speaking to me. And then I had a second dream at some point about Demona, and this first thing was God speaking to me while I was asleep. His voice was speaking to me, and he told me this, and I wrote it down. He told me to write it down and to tell my wife about it. And then I had another dream, and I saw this nuclear power plant, and in this dream, this plant was hit by some type of attack, and it was, I think it was on fire. I may have made a video about this. I'm not sure. I know I wrote it down, and I can remember seeing this facility. I was looking at it from a building, and I could see the cooling, the main dome with the cooling tower next to it. I could see that there was something wrong with that area of this nuclear power plant. And so that's basically what happened.
Amen.
It's those two things. And the Lord had told me that. And, remember the Lord told me, and I told you too at the time, that the Lord had told me that they would make these missiles that were more accurate, that were able to hit even Jerusalem. And at the time, people said there's no way they could hit Jerusalem from where they are. And I saw these Hezbollah guys with these rockets, and on the side of them, the rocket said 202 on the side of the rocket. And they were able to hit the city. A bunch of the Lord used to deal with me quite a bit about Israel. I saw, those Israeli, look like rabbis in an underground facility. And I told you about this too, about them having this weapon that nobody else has.
That's right. You did, Brother Gary. And what's interesting, to confirm what you're saying about the Iranians and their technology, and which they didn't have at the time, I had gotten information from Iran that they had a technology that Israel and the United States could not mitigate. And of course, through my contacts in the Pentagon, they had confirmed as well there was a technology that they could not mitigate. Well, that technology, Brother Gary, ended up being that there was something on their missiles that the Patriot or neither the David Sling could detect an incoming missile. And so therefore, it made it virtually impossible for them to stop those missiles from coming in. And this is something no one wanted to admit. And when I reported it, I guess it took almost a year before finally the Israeli government, and it was actually the defense minister of Israel, that actually came out and said that they have that technology. Well, back when Trump was president last year, I knew that there was a very high probability that he was going to go to war with Iran. And the reason he was going to go to war with Iran was because Iran already had nuclear weapons. And he wanted to try to stop them from being able to use what they do have. We know Israel says that they're trying to keep them from getting them, but even the Israelis know they have them. That's been confirmed to me by one friend in Mossad. The other one is an Israeli journalist. Both of them know that it's true. But at the same point, though, the reason why I wanted to say this, though, while I was getting back to this issue of December of last year, was I'd gotten a report in from friends there that have very close contacts in Iran intelligence that the Iranians had given their ballistic missiles and their latest technology over to Hezbollah. They'd given it over to many of their allies, even including the Houthi rebels in Yemen. So I can see then why, if this is Hezbollah that has actually done this attack on Demona, they've been given it. I mean, so in reality, it's still Iran giving them the capability to do what they're doing. Brother Gary, your thoughts?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. I saw these two men in this dream, and they had the rocket was a green color, and it had white letters or yellow letters that said 202 on the side of it. And it was a pretty large rocket. And the Lord was telling me that they had the capability to strike Jerusalem with that. And it was some new ability that they didn't have before. And, what I was thinking about, too, when you're talking about this and your proof of whether the Iranians have a nuclear weapon, we know from government reports that there were neutron triggers initiated. We have satellites, and they're ostensibly, in the beginning, they were to detect stars when they collapsed, the neutron emissions from stars, and they began to detect neutron emissions way more than what scientists had said. Well, statistically, there should be this amount of neutron emissions with a certain amount of stars collapsing. But what they found was it was happening a lot more regularly. So they began to search the skies, and they didn't see any light or anything from those areas where they would think, this neutron emission came from. So they began to look towards the Earth, and what they were detecting were Russian detonations of nuclear weapons and tests of neutron triggers. And so the United States government knows that I believe it's in the Perchin facility or Nance, one of those, they detected, I think it was 5 neutron trigger detonations. And a neutron trigger, so that people know, to initiate a nuclear explosion, you have to initiate a neutron cascade in the weapons stockpile, whatever it is. Like if it's 235 or plutonium, there's usually, almost always, there is a neutron trigger initiation that causes the beginning of the cascade, and then the detonation that compresses the material down. There are gun types which use a compression also, but there's always this neutron trigger. And so our government has tracked that there was neutron triggers being fired, and they're very rare. You cannot get them. They're a controlled device. So somebody's given the Iranians those devices and allowed them to test it. What they're doing is they're testing the configuration of this bomb to see how it works, see what happens when it does the implosion, and they're doing the timing for all this stuff. You would think the Russians could just give them all this material, or China, or whoever it is, but they may want to be able to deny it was that they had any involvement in it, and so they allow these guys to experiment with it and figure out how to do it themselves, so that when they do use one of these, say on an American city or on an Israeli city, which I saw, the Lord showed me that Tel Aviv got hit by a nuclear, what it looked like to me was a nuclear weapon. It came in through that Haifa area. It was some type of a drone type thing, because it turned as it came in. I saw the seaport and everything.
Well,
that dream, that was about 5 years ago.
Brother Gary, that's another interesting point right there as well. So I'll just kind of share with you that the friend that I have, that his family is part of the Mossad, in fact, his father-in-law is one of the early founders of the Mossad organization, had shared with me back earlier this year, a lot of the people in the intelligence community. He lives up in Netanya, which is just basically the outskirts of Tel Aviv on the northern side there.
Right.
And this is where Shin Bet and Mossad headquarters are. Well, a lot of the people that are there have been coming in and moving out because they know that this will be where Iran would target. And it's interesting because when he wrote me, Chris said, he goes, "Well, Steve," he said, "all right," he said, "we don't have to argue the issue. We know that Iran has nukes, and that's what they're gonna use when they hit us here." He said, "So I guess I'll just become toast." He said, "Either that or I need to get out now while everybody else is getting out." So they are fully anticipating this is going to happen, and so it's just headed there. Brother Gary, let's take, if we would, another thing that the Lord has shown you on before as well, and I'm going to kind of just go ahead and navigate people over here. Vladimir Putin, and in fact, one friend that I have up in D.C. worked as a diplomat in Russia. He knows Putin personally. He worked there back in the days when Putin was more aggressive under Yeltsin at the time, but he said that he believes that there's some type of transformation has happened to Putin over the years. He said noticeably so. He said because he was like an arch enemy of his back when they were dealing with the Cold War, things like that. But he said Putin has really been very, as he put it, he's been really holding back. And he told me just recently that he's under a lot of pressure of taking on America, which to me it's all part of the New World Order agenda anyway. So Putin may be just playing right in. He may be playing the cards the way the rest of them play it. But nonetheless, today, article came out on the Business Insider, and it states here, Russian President Vladimir Putin, in an annual address on Wednesday, warned any adversaries who crosses Russia's red line that they will face any asymmetric, fast, and tough response. So the organizers of any provocation threatening the fundamental interest of our security will regret their deeds more than they have regretted anything in a long time. And Putin said, per the New York Times, I hope no one gets the idea to cross the so-called red line with Russia, and we will be one of the ones to decide where it runs in every concrete case. It says some more things, but I'll skip that. Brother Gary, I don't know if you've caught before this began to build up, before Russia and Ukraine even moved the first set of troops on this latest issue, I had actually got, I won't say how I got it. I have to be careful about that, but it was sent to me immediately that Biden had met with the Ukrainian government, and he made a deal with the Ukrainian government to send their troops to Crimea and the Donbass region and make it appear in the public eye that they're going to take back their territory and that they're going to basically say that Russia is being aggressive and Ukraine has to do this. But he said to me, it's not the case, Steve. He said Biden had made a lucrative deal with the Ukrainian government if they can cause enough pressure on Russia to drop the Nord Stream pipeline from going through there and use the U.S. pipeline instead. He said, so you're going to see a lot of propaganda. He said, and you're going to see a lot of troop movement start taking place. Now, I reported this about a month ago now, Brother Gary, and everything that I was told is actually really, we're seeing it. And they are putting it as if Russia is the one that started everything. But I know that they didn't actually start it. But nonetheless, we are where we are now. I know that the Vilna of Gaon, the Israeli rabbi from the 17th century, he had always said that Russia would take Crimea, that Russia would also invade Ukraine, and that this would lead to the Gog of Magog war. I personally believe that, and it's mainly because I've studied a lot of the Vilna of Gaon's writings, that they're trying to fit the world events to fit the narrative that he laid out for the coming of the Messiah, which in this case we know would be the Antichrist, because Jesus Christ is the only Messiah that there ever will be. And this is what Israel needs to see today. They need to recognize that Jesus Christ truly was the Messiah in order to complete the redemptive process for them. But anyway, can you kind of share some things that you know about the issue with Ukraine and Russia?
Yes, I had a dream. I made a video about this also. I dreamed that I was in front of my computer and I was just looking at like YouTube stuff, different people's channels and things like that. And then across my screen, it flashed an alert, and it had like a red header bar, and it said that it was either 2,300 or 3,200. I can't remember, the numbers may be reversed. NATO forces were killed in some type of action with Russia, and it seemed like it was like a tactical nuclear strike or something like that, and it was in these areas that are of interest right now. In Ukraine, on the edge, it's part of Russia. I guess they're trying to bring back the Soviet Union, and bring back those lands that were one time belonged to this whole federation. So what I saw was, there was a great loss of life, and it's in these areas that, at that time there wasn't a lot of stuff going on when I had this dream with Russia and Ukraine, and then it just started slowly building. Like you said, they came in and took Crimea, and President Obama did not do anything to stop that. In fact, they were, like you're saying, they're trying to make some kind of deal to further their own financial ends, and I believe they're walking this tightrope between triggering war, and not only has Putin talked about his response. I mean, he's said this many times. You can watch Russian television where he's talking to the Senate, to the Russian people there in Russia, and he's talking about taking a hardline stance, and I think he was afraid of what Donald Trump might do, because Donald Trump, is a loose cannon, and who knows what he might do. And now he's dealing with somebody that's very weak. And you can see that in not only in Biden falling down when he's trying to board the plane, but also when he was at Arlington and he was walking, and when he walks away from the camera, when he has news meetings, he looks like a very frail old man. And, there was people talking about when Khrushchev was putting missiles in Cuba, and he looked at President Kennedy as being a very weak president. And so when you have a wolf and it's sizing you up, or a bear in this case, and it's sizing you up, and it feels like you are weak, it could provoke them to attack you at this weakest position. And if you look at what's happened to the United States with COVID, and then now we have the AOC, which has taken over, basically controlling Bernie Sanders, and we've got Biden and Kamala. Those people are very weak, and every day they're running down the United States in front of the people of this country on TV, and they're saying that the entire country is systemic racism and all these terrible things about us and how terrible we are. And I think Russia, Putin especially, because he, like you said, he's a KGB agent. He's killed people personally. And this man doesn't take prisoners, and he sees a very frail, weak old man that's the head of the United States who may blink. If you watch the movie The Shootist with John Wayne in it, and he's being interviewed about how he killed so many men, and he said, well, some men will take a breath before they reach for their gun, or they'll pause in some way, and he says, I don't. And that's what we have here. We have somebody, they're building up the Russian military. There's satellite photographs of a huge buildup of planes and materials. They've revamped those bases that are up in the Arctic area. They're doing patrols near the United States. Those Tu-95 Russian Bear bombers that are propeller driven, those things carry numerous cruise missiles, and those cruise missiles can be nuclear tipped. And that's what I saw in that dream when I saw San Francisco being hit by that EMP, and then there was a nuclear strike against the city, the port area. Those were cruise missiles that came in, and my eyes zoomed in on the tail fin of them, and they had the Russian flag on, which at the time I was thinking, no, the Russian flag is this red flag, and it's not. It's white, red, and blue.
That's
and so
right. They actually changed the color of their flag. It's
right.
white, blue, and red, exactly.
Right. And so I didn't know that. I was thinking, who is that flag? So I began to look up that flag, and it's Russian. So, and those were cruise missiles that came in, and that would be the perfect thing. We only have, I think, our aerial defense system for the United States. There's a small battery over in California, and then you don't have anything else, And so those things are equipped to shoot down intercontinental ballistic missiles, not short-range cruise missiles with a nuclear tip on them. It'd be almost virtually impossible to stop those things. And that's the thing that I think about. Like, we have this weak president. All these things are building up. And then, Putin challenged Biden to a debate, a public debate. He'd eviscerate him because he's so weak. And half the time he doesn't even know what he's doing or what documents he's signing or who he's talking to or what they're doing. He forgets the names of things. So it's not, when we had Donald Trump in there, he never made mistakes like that. He said a lot of crazy stuff. He was very boisterous. He said a lot of things that many Christians believe or wish that he wouldn't have said, but at least he was a strong president and a strong figure that a lot of people in the world feared, and he was doing all these things, that seemed to be working, and he was really working for Israel, trying to bring the capital to Jerusalem like was promised for years, and do some of these other things that have been neglected. And, we see what that got him.
Yeah, and what's really bad when it comes to that right there with Israel, because Trump gave everything to Israel that they wanted. And at the end of the day, Netanyahu turned his back on him. And in reality, they're the ones that actually caused him to lose this election. And of course, through being rigged, it wasn't the fact that it wasn't rigged. But anyway, Brother Gary, I really appreciate you coming on, brother. If you would stay on the line with me for a moment here, we're gonna close this out. Listen, those of you that don't know Brother Gary, like I said, his YouTube channel here, Bear049. He just really is a really good brother, very solid, and I can't tell you how much I love this brother. I really do. And Brother Gary, you mean the world to me, and I appreciate you taking the time to come on. And I'm glad I caught you. So,
yeah.
So anyway, God bless you. Thank you guys for listening to the broadcast tonight. And don't forget IsraeliNewsLive.org, our website. And Brother Gary, do you actually have a website as well, or just your YouTube channel?
The only one I have is that Terran 52, which is that alien site that has pictures of the aliens and a little story that I tell about what happened with the fallen angels.
How do I spell that?
Aliens.
How do I spell that, brother? Your website?
I think it's just TERRAN 52. I think is what it is. It's they can just type my name in a lot of times and put the word alien next to my name or abduction next to my name, and it'll bring up that site. It's also on my webpage. There's a little bear symbol that looks like a bear on a tree.
Okay.
If you click on that, it will take you to that website, and you can look at those pictures that I did, and I have photographs of the various creatures on there too. If people want to look at those,
all right, I got
some of them, not all of them. I have a bunch of videotape of them. But
okay, yeah, Terran52.wordpress.com. I do want to get you on, Brother Gary, and I know we've said this for years, as you point out to me, and I always forget to get back with you on this. My wife is really wanting to interview you about this because Brother Gary did go through an abduction a long time ago, and it is a very profound story. And Brother Gary, like myself, he knows what Nephilim are. And I know the one thing that's always stuck in my mind, Brother Gary, is when you shared with me that one thing that you remembered was them apologizing, saying, "We know we did wrong. We're sorry." And just it tells you you're dealing with fallen angels, right? And like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Anyway, God bless you guys for listening tonight, and we'll update you. I was actually going to do a teaching tonight on the book of Hebrews, but I'll wait till tomorrow because the story that was breaking, I really wanted to get to it. And the teaching, Brother Gary, I'll just share with you real quick too, and the listeners. I actually have an old ancient document of the book of Hebrews in the Hebrew language. And so that's what I'll be sharing with everybody. So anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
Thank you for listening, friends. Good evening.